Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. Appreciate you being here today. Also, I love the feedback that we've been getting ever since we started talking to this gentleman. And he's somebody who has dedicated his life to seriously helping others within his career and also course of study. And the gentleman I'm talking about has dedicated his life to regional planning, specifically at the University of Pittsburgh, and encompassing what goes on in our lives that we take for granted, the transportation, how that's been all set up, the flow of traffic, housing, and all of that. He's our man of the year. Richard Golden Bickel Jr. is back on the program with us. Hey, Richard, how you doing today?
Very good, thank you.
Great having you back here. Ever since we've gotten together, we've gotten progressively more and more feedback at instant feedback, steve@gmail.com. And interestingly, it's from many students or those considering a career in urban planning. Included in that, I've got Kevin from Royal Palm Beach, Florida. He says, I appreciate your conversations on urban planning. I've been considering a change in career path. What type of school would you suggest I look at for urban planning?
Well, planning schools that grant degrees in urban and regional planning are at two levels. There's undergraduate schools and there's graduate programs. But if they want accreditation, they have to go through the Planning Accreditation Board and file paperwork with them explaining what their program is, and also getting a team to visit the school, which I've done in the past. And it's one practitioner and two academics. They go to the program, they review a lot of paper ahead of time, and they interview the faculty and some students and others, and then write a report as to whether they recommend accreditation. And that process works very well, and we have excellent programs that have received accreditation over the years.
How did you select the school that you went to?
You don't select it. They tell you what if you want to participate in the site visit, and you're not allowed to go to a school, obviously, that you went to. Mm-hmm. And I believe that even that you can't go to a school in your home state. So they have guidelines like that which guide the program.
Back, he said, I'm just looking here what Kevin wrote. So he's considering making a career change. Have you known? Well, I guess you did that too. You were planning to be a doctor.
Right. I left high school saying I'm going to be a doctor, and I was briefly a biology major, and then I took organic chemistry and regular chemistry, and I did not do well. And the handwriting was on the wall that I wasn't going to be a doctor. So in my junior year, I started fishing around for a major and a career, and I took an urban geography course, and the teacher was a professor in the graduate planning program at the University of Pittsburgh, and that course turned me on to a planning career. And so in my senior year, I took an advanced placement for the graduate school for the introductory course, and stayed at Pitt to get my master's degree.
Wow. And master's, I know we skimmed on this previously, but there are different masters that you can get that would apply to urban planning, correct?
Oh, yeah. If you had an engineering background, that's one entree into planning. You'd want to supplement it with some planning-related courses or other work, and transportation kinds of programs are also very appropriate. I started in a community planning program at Montgomery County Planning Commission in Pennsylvania, Norristown, Pennsylvania, and ended up spending a lot of time on regional planning issues 40 years later with more background in public transportation and transportation funding in general. I even worked at SEPTA, the public transit agency for Philadelphia, for a while.
Oh, wow. Didn't we mention that last time we got together? That came up in I guess, a story.
Yeah, possibly. I was at Montgomery County for quite a while, but it was a very interesting program. And even though I was doing community planning, going to night meetings with volunteer planning commissions and elected officials, I became interested in regional planning issues and transit. And that's where I branched out a bit and spent more time at the end of my career working with the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, which is similar to the MTA in New York, but with more of a planning function than an implementing function.
Well, interestingly, you mentioned Pennsylvania, which is where you're from, and certainly Pittsburgh. I've got Michelle checks in Tannersville, Pennsylvania. I don't know if you know where that is or that's near you. And
I've heard of it.
Yeah? Okay. Maybe something tells me it's around the Poconos.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So she says, I heard my town wants to open up a road that is now a dead end. Me and my neighbors feel it will add danger and unneeded traffic. What are my options?
Well, to really give an effective answer, I'd have to know the characteristics of the community, the characteristics of the traffic patterns around there, and the land use issues. One of the studies I did, actually the first study I did at Montgomery County, was called the Rahway Avenue feasibility study. And Rahway Avenue was a dead-end short road that went through a minority community, and they were upset because the road was not connected to the surrounding highway network, and they felt isolated. And I did this little study and recommended that connection take place. In this case, it wasn't a question of getting too much traffic. It was getting any traffic through sort of an isolated minority neighborhood.
I wonder if Michelle is also, obviously it's feelings and emotion. They're not really looking at the study, obviously. I assume so. Is this a situation where she should find a town meeting, but like a board meeting, and go there to voice her concerns?
Well, people do that, and the term NIMBY, not in my backyard, is often what occurs when people are confronted with a transportation improvement or a development that they are not in favor of.
Right.
I would say if there is a town planner or an administrator in the community she's in, she should first talk to that person, try to get informed on all the issues, and if necessary, work with her neighbors to develop a position that they could go to the township or borough with.
How effective is that? When you go to a town board meeting, and every town is different, obviously, I don't want to be negative here, but are you wasting your time, or are they actually listening and processing what the general consensus of the community is?
I think they listen much more than they would have 20 years ago. The notion of citizen participation is very real in planning activities and is a requirement of most federal funding programs. And so the balance is that participation is good, but if you're going to go and be a rabble-rouser, that doesn't go over real well. You've got to put your thoughts together, develop a position statement, and talk to the local staff, and then go to the elected officials and say, this is what we think is happening, and we'd like to see some changes made. If you want to just toss the project out, that doesn't go over real well.
Yeah, it seems to me, and maybe it's rhetorical, but we got to do our homework. If you're going in there and you've got some concerns, you have to look at everything, get feedback from others, maybe other planners, maybe somebody that does planning that may not be connected to the town to back up what you're saying. Because many people, I believe, would just go in there and just have emotion. Not, like you said, not in my backyard. This is a bad idea. Can't open up this road. I know it's going to lead to a larger flow of traffic, but we don't feel it should happen because of this reason. Hey, here's a great question. They're all great questions, but this one's very specific. And this one comes from Clark, who checks in from, trying to see where it is here, Oakland, California. Okay. He says, can you give me some insight on urban planning and the career path? I majored in civil engineering and now have been in the workplace for almost a year doing transportation and traffic work. I am hoping to start moving into the planning realm. Should master's school be on my radar?
It should, if he really wants to get a degree. There may be courses and seminars that he could attend that would, if they're approved or supported by his engineering program, that would be very helpful if he doesn't have the resources to get a planning degree. I think I didn't have any background in economics, and I regretted that I didn't take courses in economics because I was taking courses that I thought initially would help me be a doctor. And sometimes you can't go back. You either have to supplement your job with personal training. I bought Samuelson's book called Economics when I started working at Montgomery County, and read the chapters and learned more about economics than I ever knew existed.
Wow.
And another book that's important is Robert Caro's biography of what's the guy who built all the projects in New York?
Robert Moses?
Robert Moses. Robert Moses was not necessarily a planner, and he was not an elected official, but he had the support of Governor Rockefeller and others to implement highway programs, and he was a highway guy. He did not favor public transit, and he was worried about trucks on his roads, and so he designed these very curvilinear highways coming out of New York into Nassau and Suffolk counties, and he also was opposed to public transit in some ways. He didn't want buses on these curvilinear roads, so he designed the bridges to be only about 10 feet high, and that blocked some of the buses from going through these areas. That's great if you can get away with it.
Right.
And he got away with it for a long time.
Yeah, I have another. This one comes in from Justin, and he says, I have a degree in natural resources and conservation. Would that apply if I wanted to look at urban planning?
Yes, that's a natural fit, no pun intended, and it would be enhanced by taking his natural resources approach and adding planning to help implement some of those concepts. The image of people who are for open space and natural resources sometimes is they're dreamers who don't think about the real world. Well, if you combine that with a planning degree, I think that would help.
Can you give us the difference between a civil engineer and an urban planner?
Well, a civil engineer, I believe, and I'm not an expert on it, but a civil engineer is designing bridges and roads and trying to put new projects in the ground. A planner is looking at demographics, population, employment numbers, the community's character, and potential new projects to develop a plan of how those new projects would be implemented within the bounds of that community.
I appreciate your transparency on classes that you wish you did take, and I can completely relate to it. I started radio when I was very young and broadcasting. I look back and psychology interests me now, and I'm sure I could have used it to my advantage along the way. But yeah, when I was younger, I was thinking, I don't need that. I'm already doing what I want to do, and kind of missed the boat on that. So I can definitely relate. And of course, you were going in a medical career path, so that's where your study was directed at until you realized it. But what are some of the things that you learned along the way as an urban planner that kind of surprised you? Anything stand out in your mind?
Well, you said you were interested in psychiatry or psychology,
yeah.
And that's something that I think if you have a chance to take an elective course might be interesting for a student, because you're going to be dealing with people, and if you're a consultant, you can't just walk into the room and say, this is a great project, you've got to do it. And if you're a community planner, you're going to be at one end of that kind of a statement. And you have to realize you have to rely on what I call friendly persuasion. You've got to present the facts and see if you can capture the imagination of the people you're dealing with the knowledge that you have, and sort of sell your project or sell the plan.
I agree with you in that facts don't lie. So if you're going to do anything, you need to do your homework, even if it's a not in my backyard, kind of situation. Again, you can't just walk in there with emotions. And, there's many that believe that it's all a money grab, and all these rules are put in place so that permits can be issued and towns just make money off of that. I do remember one time I bought a house. There was a buffer of land in back of the house. It wasn't even big. It was like maybe a 20 by 60 foot area, but you couldn't do anything with it. It was just trees. And the shed was too close to the buffer line. So the homeowner put the shed on PVC pipes and rolled it to the center of the lawn so that, I'm not even kidding, so that I could buy the house. And then I pushed it back. But when I wanted to sell a house, I said, I'm not going to do that again. So I went to the town, before the town, and said, can I get a variance on this situation? They said, yes, give us $500 and you're good to go, which I did. It just was easier than, the whole other process of moving the shed. But many times it's set up there to make money for the town.
Well, the zoning ordinance has all kinds of requirements and setback requirements, height requirements, lot area requirements, and if you're going to try to build something on a vacant piece of ground, you need to study the local ordinance. There's also subdivision regulations, that how many lots you can have, and characteristics. And so the best thing is to go to the community staff, get a copy of some of these things and study them, and then if you're going to oppose something, work with your neighbors to develop a position that isn't just, I don't like this.
Yeah, because it's fueled by emotion. Many people have, like you said, and the more and more I look at some of the messages that we're getting while you're on here, there is, when you say not in my backyard, that's a strong statement. You're making a very strong statement of I'm not having it. This can't be here. It's my backyard. But there could be very valid reasons why that whatever was being proposed is actually being proposed. What do you want people to know about a career in urban planning? You've been very inspirational to many, as we can see here by the feedback that we've gotten. But overall, Anything stand out for you would want people to know in choosing that career path?
Well, I think it gives you an opportunity to work with communities. It gives you an opportunity to make presentations and not just be in the background. It's based on a concept of comprehensiveness, so you get to look at environmental engineering and planning issues, and to me it's a fascinating profession. And one where you say to yourself, now why didn't I take this when I was in school? Because sometimes you're learning new things that come up. The NIMBY syndrome used to be sometimes a few people, and now people are very organized. And some of that comes from news coverage where successful NIMBY programs are developed against a project, and sometimes there are proponents who have their own project that they want to advance. And so elected officials are sometimes caught in the middle between these two sides. And the main thing is you should be aware that people have different values and different ideas about what should happen. They are threatened by projects that are right next to them of any kind. Even a well-designed multifamily project adjacent to a single-family neighborhood will produce what is now called the NIMBY reaction. 100%.
You got to do your research. That's what I'm getting from all of this. You have to do your research. You can't just get emotional and say, "Hey, you're not putting that there." Facts don't lie. If you can present reasons why, you'd have a better chance of positioning that. Richard, as always, great talking with you. Appreciate.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and thanks for the time that we spent. I know that at some point, I feel that we'll definitely get together again. And open my eyes up to what's going on out there, and an appreciation for the work that's done by urban planners that we all benefit from. So I appreciate you being here on the show. I really do.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We'll be right back. Looking for expert environmental planning? Meet Richard G. Bickel Jr., expert urban and regional planner, now offering consulting services through the University of Pittsburgh. With years of experience in urban development and environmental planning, Richard provides thoughtful, sustainable solutions for today's complex challenges. Contact Richard today, 610-649-9335, to discuss how his expertise can help your next project ahead. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
The hard part was determining that I was going to do it, but I definitely didn't do it alone.
At age 30, with the help of her mentor, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
I have a mentor, Maria. She convinced me to continue my education
and to finish what I started to get my diploma.
Just never judges. She's a true role model. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.